What is up, everybody? Welcome to another World Cup recap here on Touchline Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the rest of my videos. And you can find my written work by scanning this QR code that is right next to me on the screen. That will take you to my Substack, where you can become a subscriber there to get all of my written content delivered directly to your inbox. We have our final set. Of course, Argentina had already booked their spot, and the opponent will be France, your defending Men's World Cup champions, get past Morocco 2-0. And the thing I talked about heading into this game and have been talking about with Morocco throughout this run, specifically in the knockout stage, where they've been pulling off upset after upset, is nobody has been able to take Morocco off of their game plan and actually force them to do something different. Spain, Portugal, sit back, keep the ball in front of you, try and find a goal. If you don't find a goal, that's okay, you go to penalties. But you just don't let anybody break you down. You don't let anybody get out on the counter. You keep the ball sort of between your 18-yard box and midfield. That, second, if you divide the field into four quarters, that second quarter where you're not shooting from there, you're not particularly close to the goal, but you're also very compact. There's no space to get in behind you. And so my question for France was, can you solve that problem? Either by finding a way to create space, even though Morocco is really compact defensively, or by scoring the opening goal and changing the way this game was played. And that is exactly what happened. 5 minutes in, El slips. All of a sudden, Antoine Griezmann is flying toward the goal with the ball. He cuts back a pass. Deflections happen. It ends up at Theo Hernandez, who does a great job finding a way to hit that first time and get it into the net. And it's 1-0. And just like that, the entire blueprint Morocco had been using to get to this point is no longer available. And so then you saw this game turn into more of what France wanted it to be. Morocco dominated possession. By the time Morocco really started creating chances, it could have been 3-0. You had, the Giroud opportunities specifically, because that space started opening up, because Morocco had to commit more numbers forward. That the game was not being played in that space where Morocco wants it to be played. It was being played more in France's half. And so all of a sudden, there's space for Dembele, there's space for Mbappe. Giroud knows how to sort of find that pocket of space, be the hold-up guy. I mean, he made a living off of it in 2018. And then get the ball out wide to those guys as they're running behind. Right? Prior to this game in the tournament, you didn't see those kind of runs happening against the Moroccan defense, where the Moroccan defense was kind of chasing people from behind, trying to stay with them. Everything was, Morocco's center backs were sitting there watching everything in front of them. And that's just not how this game played out. So France got exactly what they wanted. After halftime, though, El had that incredible bicycle kicked attempt that nearly went in at the end of the first half. That's when things kind of started to change. And to Morocco's credit, even though they couldn't play the game they wanted to, they created plenty of chances. And they have been one of the worst attacking teams in this tournament. And they just didn't have that quality you needed in the final third to get the goal. But they absolutely looked like they belonged. They were giving France all kinds of trouble. You had goal line clearances, block shots, passes that almost connected, all kinds of things in the second half. This was never a done deal until that second goal went in. And finally, sort of Mbappe gets his moment. He just starts dribbling past guys left and right, gets the shot off. Kolo Muani is there to put it into the net. Congratulations to him. Come on the field, score a goal. Nice cameo there. First one of his international career. He had basically, I think it was 11 minutes he had spent on the field for France before this tournament. Second appearance at the tournament, he gets his goal. Really cool moment for him. And important goal because Morocco had another really good opportunity at the end. They kept pushing, trying to get that first goal, see if they could find a way to get two. And it just didn't happen for him. But it felt very different after that second goal went in. That second goal was really, really important for obvious reasons. And so my big takeaway from this game was just the way it played out, like I talked about. The fact that you knew exactly what Morocco wanted to do, and France found a way to not let Morocco do that. The second part of this is Morocco, again, had those opportunities. And one of the reasons why, aside from they just gave a good account of themselves and played well, was, to me, this is the game you finally saw the absences really hurt France. It was going to happen at some point. Whether that was because guys got tired, whether that was because the competition just got too stiff, whether it was because you just lost too many guys. And that's what I feel like happened here. Because Giroud's been really good, so you're not really missing Karim Benzema. You won a World Cup without Karim Benzema. I can argue you're a better team without Karim Benzema. That loss was just not that important. As brilliant of a player as Karim Benzema is, that's what incredible depth gives you. The other part of this is the midfield, which is where, again, you weren't really talking about the fact N'Golo Kante and Paul Pogba weren't there because the Tchouaméni, Rabiot, Griezmann trio had been spectacular. And so you weren't talking about it because it wasn't an issue. All of a sudden you lose Rabiot to sickness and Upamecano as well, although he's had some shaky moments. They have so many different center backs they could play out there. That to me wasn't a huge deal either. The big loss was Rabiot, who in a perfect world wouldn't be starting, but has become one of the most important players on this team because the other midfielders aren't available. And so now you're out 3 of your top 4 midfielders. And that's where it really started to hurt you in terms of dealing with the pressure that Morocco were putting on France in that second half, in terms of dealing with the overload on the right side and all of the, you had Ziyech out there, you had Hakimi out there. Their midfielders were, 7, 8 guys on the right side of the field, it felt like sometimes. Figuring out how to deal with all of that and how to stay organized and how to get out of that pressure and not let Morocco continue to sort of throw crosses in, keep the ball right on the edge of the 18 in that really dangerous area where you want to, it just wasn't a good day in midfield for France. Part of that is Morocco's midfield has played very well in this tournament, and they deserve credit. Part of it is 25 combined appearances for France between those two holding midfielders heading into this game. And you saw it out there. As good as they are individually, specifically Tchouaméni, you just need more experience. And more experience playing at the highest level, more experience being under pressure like that. So that was my other real takeaway from this game is you finally saw the cracks in France's armor from a depth standpoint. And you could argue, going back to maybe there were signs in the England game when they didn't play very well and probably should have lost, that this was coming. I really always thought Morocco had a chance to win this game for that very reason, that you saw a blueprint as to how, not only Morocco having a blueprint, but a blueprint as to how to beat this France team. And Morocco were not able to execute that blueprint because they gave up that opening goal, which then opened up those transition moments. But they still kept themselves in the game. And so I'm to the point where, and I'll talk about this more in a World Cup final preview, I just wonder if one of the biggest questions heading into this final that's going to decide the game is whether Adrien Rabiot can play and how long he can play. What kind of fitness he's in, what kind of condition, if he can take the field. Because it's not like you can, if he's in his hotel room laying on a bed, not really able to move because he's so sick, or he can move, but you get my point. Is he going to go play 90, potentially 120 minutes in a few days? It's possible. But that is something I am really curious about now heading into the final after what we saw in this game and the way that Morocco dominated the midfield. The final thing I want to get to here is to pay a little bit of tribute to Morocco and talk about kind of what this means moving forward. Obviously, they were phenomenal in this tournament, phenomenal story. Every decision the Federation made to completely overhaul kind of the approach leading into this World Cup, they got right. That managerial change was justified not only because of bringing the players it brought back, but also because of the chemistry, the cultural stuff that it just seemed. I mean, you go back and watch the last time they lost was that game against the United States, and they just looked completely out of sorts. It is a night and day to what you see in this tournament. And so they made the bold decision to change managers right before, and it worked out really well. And now you have this incredible memory. You're the first African team on the men's or women's side, by the way, to reach the semifinals of a World Cup. It's a terrific story, and time again, they proved they deserve to be here. There was nothing fluky about this. And yes, they lost this game, but they had a really, really good showing again. This was not France playing Morocco off the field. This was France finding a way to get past Morocco through a couple key moments, a couple fortunate breaks. This was an incredibly competitive game that honestly probably should have ended 1-0, not 2. And so you look at what Morocco did in this tournament. Group stage. Belgium, semifinals 2018 World Cup. Round of 16, Spain, semifinalist Euro 2020. Quarterfinals, Portugal, winners Euro 2016. Those are the last 3 major tournaments European teams have participated in. Morocco beat them all. And then went toe-to-toe with the reigning world champions. The gap between Morocco or insert any other African nation that is one of the ones Cameroon, Senegal, Egypt, Nigeria, whatever it might be. The ones that you think of as the teams that regularly make World Cups. The gap is incredibly small. And so one of the things I'm thinking about here is and particularly the teams that didn't get into this tournament, if I'm the Nigerias, Algerias, Egypts of the world, or a Senegal that didn't have Sadio Mane for this tournament, I'm looking at this going, why can't we be next? And part of that is there is a real argument, and I think I would wholeheartedly endorse this, that the African qualifying process is the cruelest of any region, because you don't have these clear favorites, and because everybody is playing this one-off, third round game where it's 2 legs, winner advances. No matter what you did in the group stage, no matter how good you've been over an extended period of time in qualifying, it's 2 games, and if something goes wrong, you're not going to the World Cup. Because you have to find a way to knock it down to the amount of teams you're allowed to have in the World Cup. That's all changing with 2026 and the expansion to 48 teams. You're talking about, okay, so we're adding teams from all these different regions. So you see, for example, what Wales did in this World Cup. And I'm not trying to pick on Wales in particular, but it's just a good example, right? Those are the kind of teams you're going to be adding from UEFA, theoretically. And you're going to get an Italy in there. So maybe you have 1, possibly 2 teams you feel like are going to be real factors in the tournament that you add from a UEFA side of this, depending on how it all shakes out. You're looking at CONCACAF. You've got 3, maybe 4 of Costa Rica's playing well that you feel like could really make some noise in a tournament, and they all made it this time. You're looking at Asia. Japan's qualifying. Australia is now going to be in a better spot to qualify, but they seem to find a way anyway. You're talking about South Korea, who should have no problem qualifying. It's not like there's an Asian team that wasn't in this tournament that you're really looking at it as a force. And you can kind of go down the same thing with South America. Certainly, there are other good South American teams that didn't make it, but Uruguay, Brazil. I mean, you could argue, okay, so maybe Chile, Colombia certainly has had moments at World Cups. But by and large, the big winner of this expansion is Africa. Because there's just nothing between the teams that go and the teams that don't right now. And so I'm looking at 2026 and just thinking Morocco proved that, and it's not like Morocco needed to prove this, but another reminder that the gap at the top of the sport from an international standpoint, it's just not that big. You got Ashraf Hakimi and Hakim Ziyech out there playing for Morocco. And Nigeria has plenty of, Premier League players. Mo Salah is playing for Egypt. You can talk about Son in South Korea. There just isn't, and the sport also inherently lends itself to more upsets because somebody has to score a goal or you go to penalties. And one moment changes everything. And so the other thing I want to get to here, this is my very long-winded explanation, but Africa has really, and Morocco in particular, has done a great job setting the stage for Africa in 2026 in the North America tournament. Because now you're going to have an additional probably 2 or 3 teams that feel they are every bit as good as this Morocco team. And rightfully so. And that's a compliment to Morocco and the rest of Africa, not a knock on Morocco. It's just the reality of African qualifying right now that you don't get as many of these teams having the opportunity to do what Morocco just did. So it's entirely possible to me that we see, and maybe it's not a semifinal because this had never happened before. But you look at what Africa did overall in terms of picking up wins, the problems they caused favorites in the group stage, and then what Morocco was able to do in the knockout stage. And now you get a Nigeria, an Algeria, for example, in there. And I see every opportunity for Africa to be even better, more dangerous, more successful in 2026. Because you're not adding teams that are clearly worse than the ones who are making it, like you are most of these other regions. You're adding teams that are every bit as good as the ones who just made a really good showing in Qatar. And so that was the other part I was thinking about this, and kind of my tribute to Morocco is I really feel like this is just the beginning. And there are teams that did not qualify from Africa watching this going, that can 100% be us in 2026. We've got the same quality of players. It just didn't happen to go our way in that final playoff round. And so they were watching this tournament at home. And so I really, really expect we're going to be hearing a lot more from these African countries in 2026, that this is the beginning of and I don't want to say kind of an evolution of, or a changing of the guard or anything, because we've seen very, very good African teams in this tournament for decades at this point. But we're going to see more and more deep runs from African teams. We're going to see African teams be more and more competitive because you're going to get some awfully good ones who deserve to be in this tournament with this expanded field. And I'm really excited to see that. And so part of the pushback I would have to kind of this idea of it's just making it more congested, and do we really need these teams here? Generally, that's a fair question. The one exception I would say to that is maybe a team or two in UEFA, because it always seems like somebody ends up in the wrong qualifying group, in the wrong bracket in the playoff, and whether it's the Netherlands, whether it's Italy, doesn't make it. But outside of that, the other teams that deserve to be in a World Cup and deserve the opportunity to play with the best in the world are generally the ones in Africa. And so I'm really excited to see what happens in 2026 as a follow up to this incredible run Morocco had. That is all for this video. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be on the lookout for my World Cup preview video that'll be coming later this week. And I'll see you next time.